When it comes to investing, Dave Ramsey is a very dangerous individual. I don't mean that in a good way. And I'm saying this because there's a viral clip that's making its rounds on Twitter where he gives some investing advice that does not make any mathematical sense. Let's go ahead and break it down. Now, I don't think I need to go into deep detail on who Dave Ramsey is. I'll give you a quick summary though. He's a finance expert. He is relatively good when it comes to paying down debt. But after that, you really don't want to tune into the guy for any serious investing advice. And that's because he doesn't really know what he's talking about from a financial perspective. And following his advice can end up really costing you money from an investing perspective. So we're strictly looking at the investing perspective. And again, this was primarily because of a clip that is going viral on Twitter. And I'm going to play that clip near the end. I'm going to give you the two primary portions that I want to react to right now. So let's go ahead and play the clip.
I found on your website a little article that talks about 4 to 5% withdrawal rate. And I was trying to run the numbers around that, and I thought I was close. And then about a month ago, George Camel released a video that said that the withdrawal rate for a 30-year time horizon should be closer to 3%. So if I can establish financial independence comfortably, then I was wondering if I could ease up on baby step 4 to pay off the house faster.
Okay, I'm a little confused because I don't know what the hell George is doing a 3% withdrawal rate, because that's absolutely wrong. I'm gonna have to find out where that video is and get it taken down, because that's just wrong. You don't need to have a 3% withdrawal rate. That's ridiculous. Or I hope you misunderstood. I hope we didn't put out trash like that.
Was it 4 to 5%?
No, it shouldn't be 4 to 5%. I mean, if you're making 12 in good mutual funds and the S&P is average 11.8, and if inflation for the last 80 years has averaged 4%, if you make 12 and you need to leave 4% in there for inflation raises, that leaves you 8. So I'm perfectly comfortable drawing 8. But if you want to be a little bit conservative, 7, but sure not 5 or 3.
Well, I was trying to back check it because, the 3 to 5, I thought that was a big range. And a lot of the studies I found showed
there's a lot of studies that are stupid in this space. So, it's just wrong. So listen, man, the math I just gave you is the math. If you're making 12% and inflation is 4, and you leave 4 in there, so your nest egg grows by 4, it's simple. 8 is what's left over. Out there have always put this 4% crap in the market, and I'm just irate right now that we have joined the stupidity.
Why is it that stupid, though?
It's too low. It's too low because it's not realistic. You do not need to live on 4% of your money for your nest egg to survive.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. There are, I would say, 2 things that are very dangerous here, okay? Number 1, the stock market does not return 12% a year. And as I'm sure you know, because you're watching this channel, you know there's not 12% every year just going up in a straight line. There are years where the stock market is down. You know this to be true because you have lived through the pandemic. You saw the stock market dip and return. And then you saw what happened in 2022 when the stock market was down significantly. So that's number 1. 12% is not a thing. But also 12% is wrong. 12% is wrong. In the last 20 years, the S&P 500 has only returned 7% when you account for inflation, which is a thing. I'm sure you know that by now, especially this year and last year, and when you include dividends. So we're putting everything into that calculation. You're only getting 7%. Last I checked, 12% is not 7%. And when you're talking about math and compounding interest, those numbers are very, very far apart. So that's the first mistake, okay? The stock market doesn't grow 12% a year. That's not a thing, okay? So that's the first error. The second one is what we call the withdrawal rate. Now, what you saw in the clip is him saying that you should withdraw 8% from your retirement accounts, from your investment accounts. Now, to explain that, we call what we call the 4% rule. That is the general rule of thumb. Not a law, not a requirement, just a rule of thumb. It's a just general place for you to start. And he is requiring, or asking rather, or suggesting that you should withdraw double. Now, here's what we mean when we say that, okay? When we talk about withdrawal rate, this is what it looks like. So, for example, let's say, just to make the math very easy, okay? Let's say that you have $1 million okay? And you are withdrawing 4%. Well, this means that you are going to live off of $40,000 per year. Now, why is that important? Remember what I said earlier, okay, and what you saw on the screen as well. The stock market's returning 7% and you are withdrawing 4%. And let's say that this was, consistent. That is the average, but it's not going to happen every single year. But if that is just consistent throughout, you withdraw 4, stock market gives you 7. You withdraw 4, stock market gives you 7. That's going to leave you with what? 3%. Okay, so I'm withdrawing 4, and let's say the stock market returns 7. Again, that is an average. Okay, I'm just going to make sure that we all know that. So stock market returns the average of 7%. I'm going to withdraw 4. But Dave Ramsey is saying, let's just say you have $1 million, and he has you withdrawing 8%, which is $80,000 per year. Now, if I have $1 million, I would love to live off of $80,000 or more per year. That sounds good from just a numbers perspective. But remember, in retirement, the way that this is supposed to work, if you play your cards right, your house is paid off if you own a home. You don't have any student loans at this point in time. Those have been paid off. All you're really doing is paying for whatever medical needs that you have. Your cars should be paid off at that point. You're just really just buying food and water, right? And just paying your basic utilities at that point in time. So you should not need tons and tons of money. But also, you can continue to work if you choose to. You can, Social Security is still a thing. We'll see if that's going to be a thing in 20 or 30 years. So you have other ways to pull in income to make up more than $40,000 if you feel that is a lot, that is not too much. Remember, I'm also using just $1 million as a baseline. You can increase that if you choose. But here's the thing, okay? The basic math here. If you are withdrawing 8% and the stock market only gets you 7%, you are what? You are losing money. Okay, you are losing money because in either case, he says it's 12. You saw the facts. It is not 12%. So if you're withdrawing 8, the stock market only gives you 7, you are losing money. But if you're withdrawing 4%, you're actually making a little bit of money, or at least keeping your principal the same. That is the purpose of investing, to get to a point where I can live off the interest and keep the principal to pass on to whomever else. But the basic objective of any retirement plan is to never run out of money and to withdraw as little as possible so I don't ever run out. That is the point. And many studies have confirmed that usually 3 to 4% is the sweet spot for you to be able to do that. But check this out. So there are several retirement calculators that will show you this. I'm going to show you this real quick. This is just Mutual of Omaha, just basic math. Well, let me not say basic math. Basic calculator that shows you the math on how this works. So going back to our $1 million, okay, we have $1 million in our savings. Let's say it's a 401k or what have you, and a return of 7%. That's what the stock market gives, at least over the last 20 years. I plan to withdraw $40,000 a year, which is 4%. So I do this each year. Now I'm going to increase this just by 0. Okay, so we're going to leave this alone. This means that each year, depending on what your situation is, you can withdraw more or less in any year. But we're just going to keep this just very straight, very linear, just to illustrate the example. But in real life, some years you may withdraw 2, some years you may withdraw 5, right? It really depends on what's going on and how your retirement plan is set up. But for this example, we're keeping everything just straightforward. So we're not going to increase it. We're just going to keep this at 0. Then we come down and we're just going to leave this as stock. Okay, so we're going to leave it alone at 22%. Hit calculate results. See what it gives us as we scroll down. Your money is projected to continue past the maximum 30 years displayed here. So we actually see that the money continues to grow well beyond the 30 years. That is the point, that my money does not run out. And the reason why that's the case is basic math. If I make 7 and I withdraw 4, I keep 3. That helps me to grow my money. And again, I'm not running out. So in normal scenario, some people say they want to retire at 65, so this gets them to at least 95, and you still sitting on $1 million, and actually a bit more. As you see here on the chart, you're getting very close to $2 million at the end. You are still growing your money and still living off that interest, and obviously you can change how much you're withdrawing. But what happens when we put in Dave Ramsey's math? So let's go back up here, And let's change this to 8%, which is $80,000 per year. Keep everything else the same. Still got $1 million. Still average annual return to 7%. Scroll down, hit calculate results. Now, look at this. This is a very different graph here. And I actually run out of money right around year 21 or so. Yeah, year 21. So my money is projected to last about 21 years. And that's not going to work. Okay, that's not going to work. I run out of money by following Dave Ramsey's advice because mathematically he doesn't know what he is talking about. Now, what does this mean for you? How do you consume this information, perhaps change your financial plan and things of that nature? You need to vet the people that you are consuming your information from, okay? Whether it is me, whether it's someone you find on Twitter or a book that you're reading or what have you. You need to know that that person knows what they're talking about and they cite their sources, which is why when we talk about any stats on this channel, I'll say I got it from the Fed. I've got it from this particular resource, or I'll put the links to things in the comment section or in the description. You guys know I've been licensed, I've got degrees, I've done all that kind of stuff, right? You have to know who you are listening to and whether or not they are credible. And most importantly, do the math yourself. And that is the most important thing here. I didn't just say the stock market just creates this number out of nowhere. I showed you where to find that information and what that number actually is. But imagine someone listening to Dave Ramsey, that's all they believe in, that's all they do, and they go out there and they do everything he says. You might be debt free, which is okay, right? That is fine up to a point. And imagine you are 60 and then you're looking at this chart and by 80, you got to go back to work at 80 years old because you thought that the stock market was giving you 12%. You were withdrawing 8 when every financial expert, every book tells you that that does not work. So you definitely want to be careful around where you're consuming that information and whether or not the math is in your favor. Now, the last thing that I'll add is everybody's financial plan is different. Okay, not everybody's going to have $1 million. Not everybody needs to withdraw 4. Remember, I said at the very beginning, it is a rule of thumb. It can adjust. And as you see here, even on this chart, it gives you an option to increase that number. Okay, so you can increase it each year. You can decrease it. You can just do whatever works for you at that point in time. But the main thing is you have got to make sure that you are vetting your information. Make sure that you are putting in what you should. I recommend 12 to 15%. The higher you get to 15, the better. And make sure that you are still investing and following those principles for the long term. But in any scenario, make sure that you're using realistic projections, okay? Realistic numbers and using history to inform what you might want to expect for the future. Can you earn 12% or more? Honestly, it's possible, but it's not necessarily likely. I could invest in Apple, right? That's risky though. Okay, so there are ways that you can get a bit more, but just pumping out 12% every single year, which sounds great. I wish that was the case. It's not. Ain't no mutual funds, ain't no ETFs that do that, especially after you account for the fees for some of those particular funds. So you absolutely want to be careful around that. The last thing I'm going to say is this. If you want to learn more about investing, you want to make sure that it works for you and that you understand what is actually going on, I have plenty of videos, including this playlist right here, that you want to check out next.